You've seen people change for, a week, 30 days, 90 days. They lose, say in a weight loss where they lose all this weight, all these behaviors, they changed. But then they boomerang right back. So change simply means that you can change back, transform. When you truly transform, you can't fit back in the spot you were. You are a different human being. Yeah. Pain is the clearest, most direct and precise information we'll ever get from the universe. It says, hey, stop, just stop.
Yeah.
Lean in and listen.
Wow.
And the universe is going to give you the exact information as to what exactly to do next. If you want your mindset to change, you got to change the corresponding beliefs that operate underneath it. As our emotions go up, our intelligence goes down. So when we allow ourselves to react to emotions, if it's not a great emotion, we may do or say stupid things. I tell people, you've got to figure out how to perform as a rock star in an unmotivated state of mind.
Welcome, everybody, to the Unreasonable Health Podcast. Today, we've got a special guest. We got Patrick Precourt with us. And Patrick Precourt, you're going to find that he's got some unique abilities of helping you transform your life in very unique ways. 30 years, he's been a real estate investor. He's been 20 years in the real estate education. And then the past 15 years, he's been in the personal development, peak performance, and altering human behavior. He's the founder of a gym called The Cage, a lifetime fitness center with the heart and culture of martial arts, which I love. He's been married 33 years. He's raised 3 amazing kids. His mastery is in changing human behavior, altering habits to produce chosen results, deep focus in leadership, team building, team culture and code, emotional intelligence, and refining mental toughness. Fun fact about Patrick is he's always been a competitive athlete. He's played rugby for over 50 years. As a challenge to himself, he stepped into the MMA cage for the first time at the tender age of 42, primarily to make a statement that age is simply a number. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Been looking forward to this. I think you and I are going to have a little fun in conversation today.
Yeah, we are. Well, the first thing you got to tell us is what happened when you jumped into that MMA cage.
So that was an amazing experience. And it wasn't, at the time, Regan, I was not like a UFC fan or anything like that, but I had been out of rugby for about 5 years. And that was a big part of my life, my career in there. And it was just itching to get going again. And I was thinking through it. And I'm like, well, and so an average age in MMA is, in their 20s,
Yeah.
And that at first seemed to be a bit of a barrier until I realized, I didn't see like any pre-qualification to requirements at the door to the MMA gym. I'm like, I think we're going to step into this and see how it goes. And it was nothing more than just a thought like that, that I stepped into it. And it turned into like an amazing experience. Lost my first fight, and it had nothing to do with lack of preparation or skill or talent or anything like that. A whole nother, quite honestly, and this is one of the things that impacted me most, had a lot to do with right here. I'll give you a really quick story, man. Yeah. When I was sitting in the locker room, waiting for my fight, and we're fighting for a gym called the Lion's Den, which is a Ken Shamrock gym, and there's a big promotion thing going on and everything. And I was sitting in the locker room. I was the last guy on our team to fight that night. We had 8 guys fighting in one night at one event, which was extraordinary. And I'm all alone in the locker room because our team's out with the rest of the guys fighting right now. And a gentleman, I never met him before. His name was Mikey Burnett. He was an early UFC guy, walks in, and long story short, he looks in my eyes. He goes, you know what? You're fighting the wrong fight right now. You're fighting the fight out there. You think it's about your competitor, about his preparation and his team and the audience and the lights, and you're worrying about the wrong thing. The fight is in the locker room right here and right now. You win the fight between your ears. Here, you have a chance out there. You lose this fight, you lose that fight.
Wow.
And that dude, bam, changed the trajectory that I was on in my entire career at that moment in time. It was an amazing experience. Yeah.
No, why that I mean, you have a military background. You've had people tell you that before. I mean, in rugby, I mean, I'm sure your coaches told you that, but why do you think it landed in that moment in such a profound way and it didn't prior to that?
Yeah, and just for clarity, I personally was not in the military. I surround myself with military people.
Oh, excuse me. A
Yeah,
lot
just
of
for
people in the
clarity there. Yeah,
military. Patrick helps, by the way. Yes.
yeah.
Excuse me.
Why in that moment? Well, you know this as well as I do, man. The messages are always there. We're
Yeah.
just not always willing and ready to receive them. That's the difference. And I think when I don't know if it's maturity, I don't know if it's circumstance, I don't know if when you're at a moment in life when maybe there's enough pain in your life, you're finally willing to see what's right in front of you, start to see the path. And that was it for me. It literally altered the way I saw the world from that moment forward. No longer did I see circumstances as a cause to my outcome. I saw me as the cause. I get to pick and choose now, but I got to work a little bit more on me. Said I stopped seeing the world happening to me and started to see how genuine lines up. The world happens for us,
Yeah.
but we got to go first. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Oh, yeah. One of my friends, Steve D'Annunzio, he talks about that a lot. Like, hey, these things are not happening to you; they're happening for you. And then his favorite thing is always express love, leave others with valuable experiences. That's his definition of love. And
Love
so,
that.
and you can't do that if you haven't mastered the inner world. It's not just in the MMA fights or whatever you're doing athletically, but it also relates to relationships, I'd imagine. And then, you're an expert in changing human behavior. And what would you say the biggest pitfalls or traps that people that you work with have fallen into when it comes to making changes?
Well, not understanding so human behavior, from my perspective, is generally very predictable. It's brutally predictable, right?
Hmm.
But we do have to understand some basic operating systems on what drives our behavior. And I think so to answer your question is that we don't take the time to understand why and how we make decisions. And we could start with the word change. It's not hard to change, but it's very challenging to transform. And the difference is this, and I'm sure you've seen it. You've seen people change for a week, 30 days, 90 days. They lose, say, in a weight loss where they lose all this weight, all these behaviors, they change, but then they boomerang right back, and it all comes back, and they
Mhm.
snap back to who they were. So change simply means that you can change back. Transform, when you truly transform, Regan, you can't fit back in the spot you were. You are a different human
Yeah.
being. Your foundation, your programming has changed. And all of that, and this is the big difference, all that happens on the foundational level, deep inside. It doesn't happen out here. So when people say change, they change what the world is seeing. They're not changing the part that matters, what the world can't see. And then
Mhm.
now we're getting into our fundamental belief systems and our operating system. When you change that, you are someone different. There's no one to go back to that looked like who you were. It doesn't exist anymore. You see the
Yeah.
separation in the two?
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah, my first book was Your Health Transformation. I wrote it 10 years ago. I can't believe it. It's been 10 years.
Wow.
But what I learned in writing that is that people in their health experience, they have to identify with who they're becoming, and then they can never look back. Like you just can't say, okay, I'm only going to do this until the big race, or once I get 30 pounds off, then I can be a little more, I can ease up. It's just like it's a daily process.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that you find helps people, because it's a lot of effort to change, but when you transform it's energizing, it's renewing is what I found. But how do you help people bridge that gap?
Yeah. So a big part of that is, know thy devils, right? When you can identify the enemy, you can conquer the enemy. And a big part of it is that. So preparing people for what's ahead. And a lot of people don't like to hear this up front, but they embrace it in time. The enemy is not out here. And that's the thing. We're always seeking out here, like, what do we got to beat out here? And that's not where the enemy is. The enemy's right here. So I describe it this way. I said, we all have an ego, and ego isn't good or bad. It can be good and it can be bad, right? But it's not by default, one or the other. But there's a part of our ego, and this is really important for us to understand, there's a part of our ego that wants nothing to do with the person that you're capable of becoming. It wants you to remain exactly who you already are, because that is your self-identity. That's how you describe yourself. And your ego goes, man, if I got to change who I am, there must be something wrong with me, and I'm not going to accept that. Therefore, we're staying the same. So now you step out of that, you're trying to do new and different. Ego's going to start planting that self-doubting, that little voice inside our brain that compromises and challenges everything that we want to do and become. We're not good enough. We don't have enough resources. You're going to fail. You're going to be judged. You're going to lose. Don't do it again. You've tried. You don't even deserve this. That's our self pulling ourselves back down. That's the biggest enemy we're up against.
Geez, just that little voice in the head. I was listening to Alan Watts this morning. He's great, isn't he?
Fantastic.
There's a restaurant in Scottsdale, Arizona, called the Ends, and there's no seed oil. It's like one of the most freshest, organic, local restaurants you'll find. Joe Polish took me there, and I went to the bathroom, and Alan Watts was playing as I'm at the urinal. I'm like, this is great. But yeah, he was talking about that voice in your head. He's like, well, when you're thinking and when you're writing, you're actually listening. And who is it that's talking? And to your point, Patrick, you bring up the good point. How are you talking to yourself?
Yeah. And that's so now I start using a little shift. I said, we have to stop listening to us and start talking to us.
Okay.
Right? So listening, that's that little voice that is not talking in our favor. And we have to start telling ourselves how this is going to shake down. So I'll share another part about kind of just our behavioral drivers, right? And I'm certain you're aware of this, but humans are much more driven by the avoidance of pain than we are by the gain of pleasure, right? So the idea of like, picture board with all that stuff we want in life and all that kind of stuff, that's good, but it's not good enough to get us to do the hard work, right? So there's this natural scale we have in us, the pain of staying the same versus the perceived pain of change. And when we can get that scale tipped, so when the pain of staying the same is finally greater than the perception of change or perceived change, pain of change, we'll take action. Like we don't have to worry about doing it. We'll do it, right? The challenge is we cheat the scale the other way. Like we're all brought up, Regan, believing that, pain is bad, should be avoided, all that kind of stuff. So naturally, when pain shows up in our lives, physical, mental, emotional pain, right? It's all three. We don't lean into it, which would load up that scale. Instead, we distract from it. We avoid it. We anesthetize and drug over the top of it. But we don't tend to. It'd be like you going out for a run and you roll your ankle, right? And you just happen to have a syringe of cortisol in your pocket and you inject it in that ankle. And a few moments later, you're back running again. What happens to the ankle?
Exactly.
It gets worse, right? And of course, this is how we treat particularly mental and emotional pain in our lives. Physical pain as well. We just drug right over it, but mental and emotional, and that's a little more subtle. But then we continue the bad behavior that produced the pain in the first place, making it worse. So the antidote, right, is to reassociate our meaning with the word pain and appreciate that pain is a blessing in disguise. Pain is the clearest, most direct and precise information we'll ever get from the universe. It says, hey, stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Lean in and listen.
Wow.
And the universe, is going to give you the exact information as to what exactly to do next. And that's how pain is supposed to work in our lives. Again, physical pain, emotional pain, and mental pain. And what now we're doing is now the universe is going to load up that scale. It's going to make it hurt in the moment, right? And it's going to diminish that perceived pain of change. The perceived pain of change refers to us in our mind making change much more difficult. All right, I got to lose weight, which means I got to join a gym. I got to buy new clothes. I got to get a babysitter. I got to get a whole new dietitian and food plan. I got to prep. I got to make room in my refrigerator. We create this massive, immovable object, make it so difficult to start, that the pain of change gets super heavy and outweighs the pain of staying the same. You see how we manipulate the scale against our favor, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And the antidote is simple. Yeah, is no, make the hard things easy and easy things hard.
Man, there you go.
Yeah. If you want to lose weight, start in your bedroom with a body weight exercise for 10 minutes each morning. Start there.
How about that? Yeah.
Just start there. Eat one less bagel a day. It seems simple, but the collective, play out of that and how many, a few thousand calories a week makes a difference, right? Just start there and build up. Be the person that does what they say. Let's start with that, right? And that becomes another part of this discussion, that when people want something and they know how to do it, they deeply desire the result and they still don't do it. Oftentimes it's because they have a track record of quitting what they begin, and they lose faith in their own promises to themselves. And if anyone out there is listening right now is resonating with this, just appreciate that that alone will stop us from achieving goals that we set. It's like at a deep subconscious level, because we know inherently right from the very beginning that we are not going to succeed here. It has nothing to do with the path or the process, it has to do with us.
Man. Well, and so many times, like, it's the small things that really create leverage in somebody's life. It doesn't have to be this just complete, departure from who you were as a human. It's like, just give up the damn bagel. Try that. Like, is it really that painful? I mean, sometimes it's comical, but when somebody's in that thinking, when their thinking is so stifled by what they perceive as pain of change, nothing happens. They stay stagnant.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I know bagel sounds funny, right? But if nothing else changed in our diet and we ate a bagel with cream cheese every day, I don't know, maybe that's 500 calories, right? Oh. We stopped eating it in 1 week. That's 3,500 calories. That's 1 pound of fat right there. You didn't change anything else.
Right.
Yeah. A week. Yeah. Right.
So crazy.
Yeah. In 1 quarter, 12 pounds lighter. And you really didn't do anything different. Like, it's that magnificent,
So decision-making, what's the structure? How do people make decisions? What's human behavior around that?
Fundamentally, our beliefs are at the root of decision-making. So let's bring in the topic of mindset for a second. And in our guru world, like everybody seems to make mindset like the holy grail. Like, it is the end all. And if you don't have a good mindset, then you're just screwed. You're flat out done, right? So naturally, if your mindset's not good, you got to change your mindset. And I would push back a little on that and say, mindset is a literal word. Your mind is set, which means you can't change your mind. It's funny, I was speaking at an event this past weekend, and I said that from stage, and somebody yelled out, "I can change my mind whenever I want." I said, "All right, let me do a little experiment with all you sitting in the audience right now. Now, raise your hand if you are deathly afraid of spiders, like you have a phobia around spiders. Just raise your hand." And a bunch of people raised their hands. I said, "Okay, I want you to change your mind around spiders, and I want you to okay me dumping a bucket of about 500 spiders on top of your head. And they're little tiny ones that will crawl in your ear, and big monstrous ones. And let me know if your mind says that is okay. Are you okay now with that?" And now they're freaking out just thinking about what I just did, right? I said, the challenge is not your mindset. The challenge is your belief around spiders. Mindset is simply a reflection of your belief system. It's on the outside what the world sees, but it's not the inside. And if you want your mindset to change, you got to change the corresponding beliefs that operate underneath it around spiders in this case, right? And so our belief system becomes our operating system. It's like software in your computer, and the computer can't operate beyond that software. So if we want change, transformational level change in our lives, and which includes changing decisions and what goes along with those, it has to happen at the belief level. It can't happen on the outside, the surface level.
I could see you sabotage your future result if you haven't changed the belief system around it.
100%. We don't even have a choice. And beliefs, every human has limiting beliefs. Think of it in terms of like a chain on a bicycle. There's always a weak link, right? So avoid of judging yourself, just appreciate that there's always one limiting belief that's holding back our entire progress here more than anything else. We should always be seeking to identify that limiting belief and leveling it up. And here's part of our ego problem, right? We don't want to admit that something we believe, which means it's part of our identity, no longer serves us. Is not exactly the way it is. And that does become a bit of a challenge for some people.
We no longer want to believe that our identity is who it is. Is that what you said?
No, we don't want to believe that one of our fundamental beliefs, which makes up our identity, is not correct. Because then that means
I see what you're saying.
We've got to alter a piece of our identity. Yeah. Think about how polarized politics have become, right?
Right.
And they've narrowed down beliefs that everything on the left is wrong and everything on the right is wrong. And that becomes an identity. And that's where we get the word identity politics. We identify with being one or the other. And for me to try to change that means you've got to change your identity around it, not your mindset around it.
And that's where people get stuck and really hard to make a decision if you're like, this does not align, it's not congruent with my identity, even though you're like, politically, it makes so much more sense if we do this, but it doesn't align. Or in leadership, which I know you work with a lot of leaders, how do you coach leaders on helping their teams get rid of those limiting beliefs and actually not even getting rid of them, but actually diagnosing them?
Yeah, so there's a whole process that goes along with it. And in its simplest terms, right, for anyone listening, if you want to identify a limiting belief in your life, start taking note of areas of your life that are consistently in a state of resistance, that almost like you're trying to move forward and there's a pushback against it. And you just don't know why. And you will find there's a limiting belief that's interfering with your progress there. And so anything, when you know how to do it and you know what to do, you know how to do it, and you deeply desire the results and you can't get yourself to consistently execute the behavior, there's likely a limiting belief that's between you and everything that you possibly deserve in life. And it's worth getting to. Now, that's the easy part, identifying it, because we can all come up with areas of our lives that we have resistance to. Like, why can't I get out of bed at 5:30 in the morning? Well, you don't fundamentally believe that's going to change anything. Okay, well, we've got to get back to that and understand that belief and why it no longer serves you, right? Talked to this audience this past weekend about the idea of wealth creation, making an ungodly amount of money in life and overcoming the idea that the belief that in order for me to be brutal, like massively wealthy, someone else has to lose. And some people believe that to be true, that it's a sum-zero game, that for me to go up, others have got to be sacrificed, which is just not true. The universe is massively abundant and generous in supporting all of us, right? But here's the hard part about changing a belief. As children, we adopted beliefs from parents, from teachers, from church environments, anywhere there was an authority figure, and they were just put into us. We didn't have a filter, or we didn't even have the neurological capacity, Regan, to decipher what was right or wrong. It's just bam, put into us, right? Yep. And then as we get a little older, we get a little better at filling those in. But by the time we're in our mid-20s, we're nearly complete. Our belief system is on lockdown, right? Now here we are as adults, and I'm saying, hey, we're going to change some of this stuff, right? You're not going to adopt a belief of mine. I can tell you it, but you're not going to adopt it. You're not going to make it yours. Just, for all the other reasons we talked about, including that self-identity thing, we're going to push back against it. What we need as adults is we need new factual evidence that supports the new belief that we're trying to put in play. And this is where it gets a little difficult, but we're all up for the challenge. In order to get the new evidence, we have to do the work first. And in order to do the work first, we have to run in conflict to an existing belief, the one we're trying to override, which means it's going to be scary as hell. We're going to be fearful, not fearless, which means we've got to be courageous. And now courage becomes your go-to methodology for establishing a new belief. We got to courageously act in the face of fear, do the actions, get the new result, factual information to support that. Yeah. This is a new belief I can work with. Even public speaking, which many people have a phobia level fear around. You can't give someone the confidence to be a public speaker that is deathly afraid of it. They've got to earn that and get new factual information that supports that this didn't kill me. And you do that by doing the work. Get up on stage.
Yeah.
And plow through it. And then measure your outcomes when you're done. That all make sense?
Well, the resistance is so powerful in our lives that we think I've had people mistaken me say, oh, I think this is the wrong time. I just don't feel it in my gut. And I'm like, are you sure you're just not like this? This is just a cop-out because it is requiring courage right now. And Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, are you familiar with?
Oh, yeah. The War of Art and Turning Pro, two beautiful books he's written.
Oh, man. Turning Pro, I think I've read that book about 20 times. I'm still turning pro every day. I'm like, all right, there's another resistance. It never stops is what I found. And that courage to do things differently. Do you find that like with you, do you just embrace the resistance and just like hit it head on like you would in rugby? Or do you still have to think about your thinking a bit around it?
I'd love to tell you that this stuff just comes easy to me and I'm that mentally tough to just plow through it. And man, I'm a warrior all day and every day.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be a lie. I'm just being perfectly honest with you.
Well, you have a good masculine face, good robust build. I just imagine like Patrick is somebody who it comes easy, but you have to work at it still every single day.
And that's, I think, a false belief that we carry, that we see other people and because they've maybe reached certain levels in life or whatever, that, man, they're on easy street and this stuff is just natural. And I'll tell you right now, man, and I know you know this, right? And it's a battle you have to win every single day.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Every day. Now, and I'll just so the audience understands a piece of this a little deeper, right? You'd agree that the way we feel affects the way we think, right?
Absolutely.
And the way we think is tied to our decision making, our action taking, and our action taking, our results. So now we have like this direct umbilical cord between the way we feel and the results. Yeah. And of course, we're talking about how do we get different results. Have you ever woken up in the morning and before you even open your eyes, you're already in a bad mood? You're cranky, you're tired, pissed off with the world, or pissed off at yourself, and you don't even know why. You just are. And that's being human, right? Well, if we ignore our control over this, that's how we're going to show up today at the world, right? Mm-hmm. We've already lost the battle before a foot has hit the floor. We can't allow that to operate. If we want to be performers, we want to operate at our best, we can't accept that any longer. That just however we feel, and we can't change that because we can. And there's, again, a process that I call it our superhuman mammal power, in that no other mammal on Earth has this power. When we have a feeling that's out of alignment with what we want to accomplish or who we want to be or how we want to go about it, we can actually stop and pause, think about what we're thinking about. We can plug in a new thought that now will rip out a new emotion out of the subconscious. And of course, that now becomes a feeling. And a feeling, that word is literal. Like we're having a full chemical response to the emotion that was stored in the subconscious. We're now starting to feel something different. And now, that's why they say, in the morning, as part of your morning routine, you should build in a little time to be grateful. Well, what that's doing is that is ensuring that you're going to enter the world in a right state. because you can't, if you're genuinely grateful, you can't be pissed off at the same time. We're incapable of holding those at the same time. And this is just like a fallback that'll prepare you to have your best shot at being the best version of you today. Does that make sense?
Man. Absolutely. I just had this conversation with my 18-year-old son who's having some relationship issues with this lady. And I'm like, hey, the only way you can approach this, there's no blame. You're not the victim. She's not the victim. She's not the villain either. You're not the villain. Gratitude. I said, just try to go and just tell her everything you appreciate about her and everything you've learned from her and through the course of your relationship. And you'll feel like such a better man if this thing falls apart. If she comes back and you guys are going to be repaired, the scar tissue will make the connection even stronger. You'll have more trust. But if you go at it with anything besides gratitude and appreciation, it's not going to end well, and you won't learn a thing from the experience. So funny you're bringing this up, Patrick. I was giving my 18-year-old son, like, I wish I had this advice when I was your age, buddy.
Yeah, same, right? Absolutely. Well, so the kind of the construct here is the idea that as our emotions go up, our intelligence goes down. So when we allow ourselves to react to emotions, if it's not a great emotion, we may do or say stupid things, right? And the idea is that we're better than that. We're given a superhuman power to actually pause, think about what we're thinking about, and respond instead of react. And somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, Pat, aren't some emotions good and some emotions bad? And this is where, we attach labels and meanings, like positive energy, negative energy, and all this kind of stuff. And I get it. And that construct allows us to maybe, understand emotions a little better. But the truth is, emotions are just a form of energy. That's it. And if you strip the label of good or bad and appreciate that, at the end of the day, our goal is to harness the energy, but not let the energy do the decision making for us. Go back to our critical brain and use that energy to support the critical decisions that we're making in life. Some amazing things have happened in this world when people finally got angry enough and they put that energy to use and did amazing things. And I'll share a quick analogy for our listeners, right? Think of it as an elephant, big, crazy elephant. That's your emotions. And a rider, a tiny little guy, 120-pound rider. The rider is your left brain, your critical thinking brain, is smart and intelligent, makes good decisions. Your right brain is your elephant, big, strong, powerful, can move mountains, and does it completely mindlessly.
So that's different than subconscious, conscious. It's right brain, left brain.
And they have to operate together. And here's how it works, right? When we get emotional, let's say somebody makes you really angry, your elephant's raw, right? And you do not include your rider, your elephant just goes nuts and he tramples the whole village just aimlessly because he's just exerting energy aimlessly without direction. That's the elephant. Now, let's say the rider is void of his elephant in the middle and has to move this big pile of rocks. Can't do a damn thing. He's too tiny and weak, right?
Yeah.
Marry the two together. Take the energy of the elephant with the critical thinking and direction of the rider, and we can move mountains in a good way. And that's tying the left brain and the right brain together. And that's how we should look at emotions. Know that as emotions go up, our intelligence goes down. We don't make good decisions. That's why they say, don't make any decisions, whether it's a super positive emotion or negative emotion. Don't make any important decisions when you're in an elevated state of emotion. Control that stuff.
Wow. And this is so powerful because it doesn't matter where you are in life. And I think so many people, they get to a certain phase of life, and I don't know about you, Patrick, but I see a lot of people who think it should get easier. It's like, oh, I'm going to retire now. I'm 60, or I'm exiting, and they're and they suddenly think that there's some finality to life. But what I found is, and I'd love to get your insights on this, but the worst thing you can do is actually not face more resistance every day and not do more courageous things and keep growing that way. It's harder to not face the resistance these days than it is to face the resistance. What's your thoughts on that? Like, does it ever leave? Is there a decade of life where you just find your clients are just smooth sailing?
To your point, there's no such thing. And here's why. So somebody listening might say, well, Pat, I finally got enough money. I'm good to go. I could just cruise out. Well, here's the thing. There's no such thing as standing still. It's impossible. And there's two parts of it. There's us, and then there's everything around us. And let's just say, hypothetically, you convinced yourself you could just go on easy street and stay plateau out here. Well, everything around you is changing so fast. Every moment you're becoming more obsolete. You're becoming less. It's kind of like our dollar and inflation. You put it in the bank, it's still losing money every day, where it's exactly the same thing. That's part one. Part two is that you take our brain as an example. Our brain atrophies when we don't use it. And the more we use it, the stronger it gets, just the way our brain and our synapses wire and fire together. The more you repeat a behavior consistently over time, those connections get stronger and more conductive with electricity. They become faster in doing so. Like, all of that stuff is true. And the second you start dropping off, we start atrophying virtually immediately. I mean, I'm sure you've hurt something on your body in your lifetime where you had to put it in a cast or immobilize it. And you're like, a week later, you're like, where the hell did all my muscle go? In a week, our muscles will atrophy if they're left dormant. Well, our entire body operates the same way, particularly our brain. And that I'll be honest, that's one of my concerns with, this trend, this drive to go into like a neural link attached to our brain as a future way of being smarter. The second we do that, we're not using our own brain, our brain will slowly and surely die out on us. And then the second when that neural link is not available to us, we're morons.
What are you? Yeah.
Nothing we can do about it.
You and I are on the same page there, because I used to have so many phone numbers memorized. It was ridiculous. And now it's like, oh, maybe I know a dozen, which it's scary to me. But the law of entropy, for those of you who have studied just some hard physics, the law of entropy is, once the momentum slows down based on the resistance, if you don't keep your momentum going and keep pushing towards the resistance, you will have entropy in your life. And that's where sarcopenia kicks in. That's where people die prematurely. Premature mortality. People are walking around younger and younger with more chronic diseases because we made the mistake of making life too easy. So
it's nuts, right?
Funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's one of the men's programs we run. One of the things that we do every single week is we challenge all of our members to come up with one hard thing you're going to do this week. Hard being measured by scary, difficult, something you're avoiding. And it could be anything. It could be from a hard conversation that you have to a physical challenge, to maybe something that maybe you got to forgive someone in your past life, like something hard every week. And that's kind of how we toughen up that grittiness, that mental toughness, that tenacity that gives us the ability to take on challenges in life. And you bring up a keyword, momentum, and I just share this with everybody. I can't let this go unnoticed, right? That is like one of the secret sauces in life. Momentum is an amazing source of energy, given to us from the universe, that without it, it's very difficult to win. And for anyone listening who has a track record of get all excited, start something new, and then trail off and end up stop, get uncomfortable, get excited again, start all over again, and then stop. And that cycle, you are avoiding yourself of like a required ingredient to success. Momentum is, it's repetition times your speed or velocity equals momentum. Small behaviors done repetitiously, consistently over time move mountains. And we always get caught up in like, okay, here I go. And I got to do it all at once and right now.
Right.
That we don't tap into momentum that way. I just had to kind of bring that up. That's such an important part of the puzzle.
Yeah. And it is. It's that, it's when you see people who are where you want to be, you just want to look for those triggers. What are the leverage points in your life that have led to the most momentum? Ask that question. And maybe Patrick, with you, I do want to jump into, people being a motivational junkie and how motivation's not the answer. You're kind of you've got a lot of interesting things to say about that. But before we jump into that, what are the levers that lead to momentum for you? What do you find?
So I'm talking on motivation junkie. Say that question again. I lost you.
Sorry, I want to know on you personally, what are the things that give you the most leverage that if you do those every day, your momentum's just going to it keeps accumulating and you have more momentum if you do these 2 or 3 things every day.
Yeah. So I see our physical health and well-being as a keystone habit to almost all other habits. Our physical body makes our brain stronger, and our brain helps our physical body. They have a partnership in doing this, right? Yeah. And I've just found in my own life that if I win this each day, it makes everything else I do 1,000 times easier. It gives me the confidence and resupports the belief system that, okay, Pat, you can do hard things and you can do what you say you're going to do, show up at the gym, do your body weight workout, eat disciplined, whatever it may be, right? When I win that one, the rest becomes much, much easier for me. Because people, unlike what people might think of me, I'm naturally I'm not like a workout freak at all. Like it doesn't just come naturally. I don't just want to do it every day, but I do want what it does for me at a deeper level than my desire not to do it.
I love that.
I would say, and then another one, just to answer your question, is doing something uncomfortable every day. In our group, we do one hard thing a week, but I do something uncomfortable. That's just, I wouldn't do it like voluntarily for no good reason type thing, right?
Give me an example.
What's an example? I don't know, showing up at a Starbucks in the morning and trying to make the person behind me in line laugh. That is so outside of my personal character to just operate like that,
Very cool.
Yeah. And that's just it seems like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm like, well, not when you see the effect it has on you of overcoming things that are hard. Another one, and this is one that I think everybody will relate to this, right? Is I'm constantly trying to level up my private life to match my public life. And what that means is how I think, feel, and act when no one knows.
Yeah.
It's easy to perform in front of an audience, meaning the public world, when they see you online talking and whatever. But what do you think about and how do you act when no one knows, when you're not going to when no matter what you do, you're not going to get punished for it, right? How do you operate that? What level, what standards do you have then? And I use this little hack where I said, what if one of my kids was watching me now or could hear what's going on in my brain, what I was thinking about? Would I be okay with that?
Wow.
Oh, that changes, as you can imagine.
That puts it through a nice filter, Patrick. Wow.
Changes the behavior pretty quick. And that's every day I work on that.
Man, so glad I asked you. Okay, motivational junkie. Why is motivation not the answer?
Good question. Because it's external to us. It's outside of our control. And we train ourselves to only perform when we're motivated. So now we can only perform at a high level when something that is not in our control is helping us. And that's a terrible plan. I tell people, you've got to figure out how to perform as a rock star in an unmotivated state of mind.
Wow. Yep.
Okay. I don't care that you didn't sleep. I don't care if the kids kept you up. I don't care if the dog was barking all night. It doesn't matter. You still got to show up and be a rock star today. What is it then? Motivation is not the answer. There's a time and a place for motivation. Like, when you have to operate above what you're capable of doing and you have the right thing to motivate you in that moment, kind of like the classic football team, last play of the series of the championship game, and it's raining out and the fans are going nuts. You got one play to score. You got 2 yards to go. The coach steps in and motivates the team to be extraordinary, way above ordinary, for this sprint over the line. That's a great place for motivation, but that's not every day, right? That's not how we operate every day. So we got to kind of bifurcate ourselves from that addiction and move over there. Okay, I got to, and this brings in the topic of emotional intelligence, being aware of your emotions and being able to manage your emotions and all of that kind of stuff. But now we got to say, all right, what drives me, which means insight, inspire. So now we got to go from motivation to inspiration. And this is where we start attaching meaning to what we do every day, right? The meaning we apply in meaning, when we go out of our way to attach meaning, that's where emotions get triggered in a good way, because in emotions we get energy and fire and fight and purpose. Like we need that every day, right? When we don't have meaning in what we do, we're void of all of that. We just show up and we're uninspired. So now we're again seeking some caffeine out here for motivation.
Yeah.
At the whim of something out here. So this is how we take back control and create a complete independence of external stimulus as it relates to how we perform on a daily basis. Again, just leveling up our game. And I don't know if that explained it well enough for you.
That was beautiful. I do like how you talk about meaning, because humans are unique in that we can ascribe meaning to any action that we're performing. And it's that meaning that gives us the purpose, and it's that purpose that allows us to stay in the game and do better and succeed. So this has been amazing, Patrick. You've been married 33 years. I would say that's far and above all the achievements that you've accomplished. You couldn't have done that without your wife. And I don't know your wife, and this is not me sucking up to her in any way, but I know how valuable my partner is, my wife, in my life. What have you learned in 33 years from her?
Wow. Yeah. So she's the balance to me in 1,000 times. So Trace and I met when we were 18, orientation day at UConn. Yes, we met early on in our career,
Yeah.
And you're right. And she's an amazing human being that is kept me on path for 33 years. She's a balance the way I do. She's a lot more compassionate and empathetic and understanding and caring than I am innately, believe it or not. And she brings me into her world in that capacity. I'll share something with you, which goes a little conflict to what we're taught about marriage. And I'm sure you get this, right? We're taught early on, and I was raised Irish Catholic and went through pre-Cana and all that kind of stuff for getting married. And they tell you, that marriage is years of compromise. You have to be willing to compromise to create peace in your life. And I learned over time, and this wasn't early on, it probably took me 10 years of marriage to start putting these pieces together, that when we compromise, that's like finding a lowest common denominator, which means that each one of us is settling for less. We're not growing or expanding. And if we're constantly compromising, it means that our union together is lowering the standards every time we compromise, versus what if we can appreciate our differences, and I support you in your trajectory and you support me in my trajectory? This way we each become the person we were meant to be. And it's in that elevation that keeps us together. We're rising, but not as the same. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Like when people are like, oh, I'm getting married now. And it's like, you're going at the mindset is, the wrong mindset can really destroy a relationship. But that mindset of we're going to grow and evolve together, that's huge. Well, I appreciate you, Patrick. What's the best way for people to find out more and maybe apply for one of your coaching sessions or events?
Yeah. So any of the social medias, all my handles are the same. They're all Patrick Precourt, one word kind of put together, right? Cool. So I'm easy to locate on DM on Instagram or on Facebook. There's only one other Patrick Precourt that shows up, and that's my son. And you'll probably be able to tell the difference. Okay. But yeah, really easy to locate me, and I'm responsive to DMs. And even if it's just an inquiry, hey Pat, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. And does it make sense for us to do anything together? And that's where all of my relationships start with our clients. It's just kind of getting in deeper to what you want as an end result. Everything I do is very result centric, so it's measured in progress. So even though I kind of play in the space of personal development, right? I make everything tangible, like levers and buttons, the process measurable. So everything we do is just tied to an outcome, a specific result. And it always starts, like we said at the beginning of this call, it always starts in the same questions, like, what do you want? When do you want it?
That's cool.
It begins. Yeah.
Man, love it. Well, thanks so much, Patrick. For those of you who love this show, make sure you share it with your friends, family, loved ones, and get in touch with Patrick. Use him as a coach. I think you will find he'll give you insights you couldn't get on your own. Thanks again.
Appreciate it, guys.